Thank you, Trish, and thank you, everyone. Just on my parents, I'll tuck into the presentation in a second. First investors, my mum and dad. When we were trying to get those first 50 families, so we had like a little website up and it was like coming soon. My mum printed off the website and went to schools and were like, could you help my son and sign up to this product? So they have been unwavering fans the whole time, and they might heckle, but please bear with them. So I'll talk through a few things. So I've given a brief overview of what Spriggy is. Trish covered it quite well, but I'll talk to where the business is at today, kind of high-level products and where we're at with users and traction and what we're thinking about doing. I'll spend a lot of time talking about like how did I go from maths to kids banking. A lot of people ask me about that, which is it's not really a straight line, and I think that when you look back, everything makes sense, but like the process is quite chaotic, and I'll talk to a little bit of the motivation along the way and some of the pitfalls and some of the funny stories. And then looking ahead, this is an innovation. I think I'll finish up with just a few notes on kind of some of the conversations I'm having with other founders and CEOs looking forward, what we think will happen in the next year or two, and what some of the key themes will be for some of the students as well. And then questions. I'm pretty open, so nothing's off. I'll be pretty transparent. Ask me anything. I might ask that we edit out some of the responses if I'm too honest. So what is Spriggy? We help parents teach their kids about money through real-world experiences. So that's the core thesis of what we do, is that you learn by doing. So your behaviours are shaped through your actions. And so we build a simple tool for parents which helps them manage money with their kids so they can teach kids about earning, saving and spending responsibly in a controlled environment with supervision. They can sign up easily online, and kids get their first bank account with training wheels. So kids get a prepaid card in their name, which has controls for the parent. They can spend their own money. Parents can have supervision and visibility. They can lock and unlock the card. They get notified when they spend. They can set up little goals, and they can earn money through pocket money and chores. So that's our flagship product. It's been in market for about just over 6 years now. We've had $400 million worth of pocket money spent in the last 3 years, which is pretty cool. And that number's now 900,000, so it's growing still quite quickly, Trish. People like the product, and I'm really proud of this. It's like a lot of people when they build businesses, they think about scale, they think about more money, more customers, and they think about growth. But we've tried to embed quality through what we do, and particularly in a space where you're dealing with parents and kids and money. Like, it's not to be messed with, it's not trifled with. So we spend a lot of time thinking about growth, but I think the thing that makes me most proud is ensuring that the product quality remains as we grow. And this is I'll show this again later, but this is kind of like each one of these peaks and troughs has a little bit of a story with it. So this is like the growth visualized over the last couple of years. And Trish touched on it. We have a number of solid backers as well. So we have Mike Cannon-Brooks' investment fund. They were kind of one of the first people to back us. Perennial, who are quite a big fund, who met us along the way, and I don't think they were very convinced, but they wanted to see what happened. And NAB have recently come on. So these are our backers. That hair is shocking, but what next? So like Trish talked to a few products. We've grown, and so our flagship product has grown and done quite well. We have a lot of Australian families engaging with the product regularly, and we're looking at where do we go from here? So what do we do next? We have a schools product, which is we help parents manage money outside of a school ecosystem. How do we solve some of the payment problems there and capture those and turn those into moments in which kids can have behavioural engagement with their money and learn from those experiences. If you look at that curve of growth, all these kids are getting older, and so what do we do? How do we support them? So we're looking at like a teens product at the moment, which is actually really quite cool and fun, where you're looking at adding more functionality, but how do you evolve the product and brand and make it cool? Like what was cool when you're 10 is not cool when you're 15. So we're working through that now. And also we have NAB on board, where we can use their infrastructure to power some of the parts of the product. So how do you introduce high interest savings accounts at the right time? So this is kind of what we're working on. I always get asked about international, so I put it up there with a question mark, which is at some point, where do you think beyond Australia? It's a global problem, and we are always kind of debating, do you focus, do you go deeper or do you go wider? And that's something which, again, with all of this stuff, happy to talk to any of it. But that's just something that always pops up. And Alice in our team does designs. The nice slides are Alice's slides, the not nice slides are my slides. And there's a bit of a throwback. This is the first version of the product, fondly known as the Australia Post product, which was made by, it was a very hacky product that was made. We went to the Australia Post, we got off the shelf cards, and then people would hit transfer money, and then I would move it in the background, and then we'd send. And I got a beer with a good friend, Alex Badran, who's here listening, at some point. He's a lawyer, and it was like, how do I scale this thing? And he was talking to me very seriously, very, very encouraging, and then he kind of told me, stop it because you're breaking the law, so you should figure out how to do it. And he's been a strong supporter over the years. So how did I go from mathematics to banking? I think, as I said, my career is not that linear. So like step one, do a maths degree. That was at University of Wollongong. I had great supporters here. Xiaoping's here somewhere. Hi, Xiaoping. And generally the maths faculty have been really big backers of mine, and they still are. University of Wollongong, very nurturing, very supportive. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about research here. I did an exchange semester. For those of you who are in that, do exchange. It's one of the best 6 months of my life. UOW is great. So I did my undergraduate mathematics here, and then I went and did a PhD where it went from kind of being a very nurturing community to be kind of thrown into the real world and actually like doing, I think out of all the things I've done, this is probably the hardest thing I've done, which is you kind of sit there and you kind of come up with some mathematics to graduate, and that comes with, there's a lot of, like, it's quite an isolating process. It's not that social. It's quite difficult, intellectually difficult, but I think all your friends are getting jobs and enjoying their work, and you're kind of sitting there hitting your head against a problem, and like, I'm 2 years in, am I actually ever going to get out of here? So that was like quite a period of resilience for me. It's kind of a bit of a rush to get out of there. So I was like, I just want to get a job. I like finance. So I'm going to take a role in finance while I was kind of doing my PhD. And that was like partially because I wanted to get a job, but partially because I didn't want to be a PhD student anymore. And this is where it starts getting a bit off the 6 months is kind of a bit of a tell. I then quit my job in finance, and it was about 20 minutes into my first day of proper work. So I didn't quit in 20 minutes, but 20 minutes was when I was like, this isn't right. I was looking at a spreadsheet with all these numbers, and I was like pretty burnt out. Like I was working the PhD and then coming out. I was like, turned to the guy next to me. I was like, why do I care about this? He's like, because if you do that really well, you get his job. And I was like, okay, why do I want his job? And he's like, well, if you do that really well, get her job. I'm like, why do I want her jobs? And he's like, if you do her job, you can be the lead of the desk. And I'm like, why do I want to lead the desk? He's like, well, Alan, he's my old boss. He just bought a boat. And I'm like, I don't want a boat. Like, and I was like, I don't know, I don't get it. And this is like the beginning of a phase where I was like, there's something wrong with me. And like that phase comes back every now and then. So I then quit my job, did a little, like my little sabbatical of Alex where I finished my PhD and was like, I'm just going to explore the world. And Ryan up there was my housemate at the time, and I think I got in his nerves. And then I obviously just started a pocket money app. So that was what happened between step 4 and step 5 was like, while I think a lot of what you hear about people starting businesses is like, I have this vision and it's always been non-wavering and I'm building towards that. Like everyone has a divergent process, like everyone's exploring a divergent, and then they post hoc justify and put it in a box. So like I think here I was like trying to shine a little bit of light on that. Like it's actually quite chaotic for most people. And so what happened between step 4 and step 5, I was like, maybe I should get other jobs in finance. I was asking people for career advice. Someone told me, you should go to Hong Kong and trade bonds because the bond market regulation is changing. I'm like, that sucks. I don't want to do that. And then I was like, I was kind of wondering whether I was employable. I was like, maybe I'm just not cut out to work. I've been in uni for too long. And it's not. And it was pretty existential in there. And then it was a Wednesday. I was driving my 2 nieces to Sky Zone in Sydney, which is like trampoline land. And a 9-year-old Lola and Indy, who I call Pickles. And they always made fun of me for being at school forever. So I was like, girls, I'm left school now. I need to get a job. What should I do? And they took the question really seriously. And so the best career advice I got was from a 9-year-old's Pickles. And the first thing she goes is, you're a weirdo, so you need to work with other weirdos. And like she was really serious. She took it really seriously. And I was like, okay, you're not wrong. You love puzzles, so solve lots of puzzles. Like, yeah, I do love puzzles. That's right. And then she's like, you make really good money, so keep making really good money. And I was like, how do you know that I make really good money? And she was like, well, you bought me a Nerf gun for Christmas, and that's a good present. You've got to keep buying me Christmas presents. It's like, and it's pretty good. She brought me in here. She hooked me in here. And then your last place wasn't fun, so make sure you work somewhere that's fun. And this is because you try to visit the trading floor, and like they're all security serious there. So like the security guard's like, you can't come up. And like to a kid, that's like pretty, you know, that imagery is quite stark. And so I came down, I was wearing a suit. I probably wasn't looking very happy. And she's like, we'll make sure it's fun. And that was her. And so she was like, go work for Google. And then I was like, okay. So like, I was reaching at this point. So our other housemate, Reese, worked at Google at the time. And I was like, could you hook me up with an interview at Google? So I went and tried to work. I got an interview at Google. This is all before the business started, as like, you know. And then I met this guy and he's like, awesome, love your qualifications. You're perfect for this role I've got in mind. Google Maps has been rolled out and we need help with the optimization algorithm for the pin dropping. I was like, what does that mean? It's like, well, you know, when you Google like coffee in Surrey Hills, this is back when all the pins used to actually drop. So we don't know how many pins to drop. We don't know if it should be 4 pins or 6 pins or 8 pins. And we think we need someone who's got the mathematical skills to figure out how many pins it should be. And then someone who can engineer this at scale. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And like, it's Google. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. And I left, I was like, I don't want to be the pin guy. Like, it just sounded, like, it sounded cool in the moment. And then I was like, what? But then I like took Pickles' framework and was like, look, she's onto something, so I built on it. I was like, I don't want to be a specialist. Like, I've done a lot of specialist things in my career. And while I really enjoy doing specialist activity, and like I learnt tremendous amounts going deep on problems. At this stage, it was like, on an interpersonal level, like it's very isolating, and I wanted to do something with a team. I wanted to work with people. I was seeking out collegiality in my role. And I look back at the finance role, which is very much like a trading floor. It's like you versus the next person in terms of who can make the most money. And I realized that was something I didn't really like. I'm too sensitive for that. I didn't like it. I'm kind of competitive. I like hard problems, big problems. I want to do something hard and big. I don't want to kind of do something small. I don't take life too seriously, so I want to have fun along the way. That's kind of extrapolating off what Pickles said. I like learning as well as solving problems. I think that's something that, the academic part and the research part and the innovation part, I kind of like new things, and I like being out of my depth in a problem space and then figuring it out. And then I'm a researcher at heart, so I kind of then started researching. I'm like, okay, well, I've spent all this time researching a certain type of equation which I just fell into, and now I'm just going to start a career, and most people are not purposeful. Like, why don't I spend a bit of that time being a bit purposeful about what I do next? And it's kind of one of those ones where everyone's so in a rush to do the next thing. It's like, actually, why don't you take, if you take 3 months, 6 months to think about it, because it's the next 30 years. And so I took some time there to think about it. And then I kind of, again, this is one of my design slides. Why Spriggy? I kind of like coalesced around like, finance interests me. It's, to quote my dad, money doesn't make you happy, but without it you're miserable. It's this quantity that, he's got some good ones. It's this quantity that like, we're all beholden to it whether we like it or not. And it's not about making as much as possible, but if you understand it, it can enable you to live the life you want to live. And I've always found that interesting. And I find the chaos of it interesting, which is that, like financial markets move around a lot chaotically, and we're all impacted by that. And understanding that I've always found interesting. Cash is becoming digital, and it's still becoming digital, and COVID's accelerated that, so that was a theme we saw. And that kind of plays into the technology piece, which is technology companies have this ability. You can write something on your computer which can scale up to hundreds of thousands of people, and I thought that reach was cool. I think, I've been in a bank that they aren't designed to build products. They take deposits, they lend money, they are regulatory vehicles to make, they're the pipes of our economy, and they're not innovative product factories. They have a certain special role, and they're not going to solve customer problems. You learn about money by doing. As money becomes more digital, this gap is going to continually grow, with kids not learning about it and people not learning about it, and banks aren't going to be the ones who solve it. And then also, you can tell that I didn't really like that time in the bank. People don't trust their banks. You don't trust your bank, yet you have to rely on it to teach you about money. And I thought that was perverse. And that was kind of like my first really experience with brand and not knowing much about brand, but that didn't feel right. And also, you look at the ASX, and it's like 5 of the top 10 ASX companies are banks, and then 5 of the top 10 companies in the US are tech companies. And I was like, where's the world going? Tech companies are going to do banking. I don't really know much about tech companies, but I've done maths and I've learned a bit of software, and I know people doing it, I can figure it out. It just makes sense for me that software companies will build solutions to help people make better decisions with their money, because tech's going to become easier to use, the regulation's going to enable players, cash is going to become more digital. and like, oh, may as well give it a crack. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And like at this point, I was like, I'd prefer to lose at a race that I choose to run than to win at a game that I don't actually care about in the first place. And so that was, again, like we talk about my parents, but they've always backed me, right? And then I think it's really important that when you have family and friends and everyone believe in you, you do crazy stuff because the people around you just reckon you'll do it. And then even if you don't back yourself, like you've got people around you backing you, and then you believe in yourself, and then it just kind of, that belief compounds. And so it's really empowering. And that was kind of where my mindset was. So I was like, let's just try build something that helps people learn about money through real world experience. It wasn't parents and kids, it was just like, let's just give it a crack. And so how did we build it? So year one, like what are we going to build? How are we going to build it? That was very much like we have this high level statement, which is abstract about the way the world's going, cash being digital. And I was like, okay, actually, what are we going to do? Like, day one you sit down, like open your computer, like what do I do? And for us, it was like, we need a real product. We need a real product that people won't delete off their phone because they engage with it so much that it's not just like an app, it's a part of their life. To create that, we didn't know what we were doing. And this is like called human-centered design, but it's actually just like two people who quit their jobs who are paranoid who just keep asking questions. And we were the best, we were the most customer-centric, which is what a lot of the designers call it, when we started because we didn't know better. Like we just had to do the work and had to do the research. And a lot of the first principle thinking we learned in mathematics, which is just formulating a problem and working through it, is what we did in that first year. My co-founder's a physicist by training, so you got like two kind of emotional scientists trying to build something with no experience. And that was kind of the foundation of the culture and how we solve problems. It's actually foundation to the culture of the company now. Spent many hours with customers, and then we did it had never been done before. Like, what are you going to build? How are you going to build it? Like, no one had ever done technology-led banking solutions. It was always banks. So we're a tech company we plug in and out of a bank. They hold the money overnight. They move the money. But there'd been no precedent for that. In that first year, we were building that Australia Post product, which was like a mock-up of the same thing. So that was really year one. Some memorable quotes from year one. Give the money back and ask your old boss for your job back. I put these up here particularly for people who are thinking about building things, because I've got a long list of people who told me that I'd fail, and it's part of the process. If everyone thinks you've got a really good idea, you're probably doing something wrong. This is not legal advice, Alex Staples. Year two was build it and scale it. So we'd kind of gotten about 50 families. We had product market fit. People liked it, but it was this clunky thing with me moving money around. We needed to go from that to something that we could put in market. So we used those customers to convince people to give us a commercial contract. We used that commercial contract to convince friends and family to give us money to hire two guys, Rob and Jeff, to build the thing. They taught me so much. It was one of the most enjoyable experiences, hiring people who are very capable and then secretly just using them to learn about stuff. And like I learned careers worth of engineering in like a year because I've got these two seasoned experts who, Rob has kids and got around the product. He was like, this is cool. And Jeff, like me, was like, I want to build something from scratch. I've done all the scale stuff. And then we went from prototype to production quality. Jeff is still in the team as well. He took 2 years out and then came back recently. So it's really cool kind of working with him for all these years. Standard quotes, you'll never be able to build it. No one will ever pay for it. We heard that a lot. You'll never be able to scale it. And I think that kind of was like year two going into year three. Year three was scale. Yeah, this one. Year three was scale. So this was like, so we built this thing. How do you get customers? How do you build a brand people trust? So we're dealing with like money, kids, like education. Like we have Visa, their logo on our product, like brand building, which is something I kind of have grown to be really interested in, was like a big part of starting in that year, but a big part of the business. And I could spend hours talking about that, but that was a really interesting phase. Like, how do you go from a company no one knows to people trusting you with the product, to people like sharing your product with their friends, and the sequencing of that is actually quite cool. How we kind of did that from 0 to 900,000. How do you not run out of money? That one is good. Again, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mum. The thing you worry about when you start a company, which needs to scale is we had all these models about whether we would scale fast enough, and if we don't scale fast enough, the business won't be viable. What we didn't plan for was scaling too fast, and we had horrible commercials on our first commercial negotiation with our car partner. So we were getting all these customers. We were losing money on them because the commercials were so bad. And there were 4 of us at this point. And so we were like 100 customers in. Then we're like, we need to build a customer service arm of the business. And it was like, okay, well, Mario did that while I fixed all the bugs, my co-founder Mario. And then we like always had this plan to raise capital, but then we got more and more customers, we had more and more bugs, we had more and more customer tickets. And then we had this cycle of death where it's like, our money's coming in, our time's gone, it's all because of growth. And then we're in the middle of these negotiations with investors where like every day we're losing a day on our runway. And that was like, getting out of that was, again, story for a gin. How do you make sure the product doesn't break? I think it's designing a product for 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people. It's, if you have like a problem which comes up once in every 100 people, if you've got 10 people, it doesn't come up, it comes up rarely. If you have 100,000 people, it comes up all the time. And then as you scale, you just surface all these bugs and then you need to rebuild your infrastructure. So we're trying to do all of that while we're learning how to raise capital. So like years 3 and 4, we're like, we nearly died as a company because we grew too fast. And that was, if you go back to this guy, like kind of 2000 and, see where the blue starts? Like that was just hold on to the walls kind of thing. Like it was, it was chaotic. And this is the thing, you read articles about companies going so well. I can tell you a story about pretty much any notable tech company in Australia you'd hear of where they nearly died because they scaled too fast or they did something, they had a scenario where their success actually nearly led to their failure. And then today, I think we've scaled through years 3 and 4, like COVID, we were kind of gearing up to grow and then we had COVID and people stopped going out and then we're like, okay, what does this mean for our business? Are people going to stop using it? Are people going to keep using it? There was a lot of uncertainty there and, you're all there. And then so that was like batten down, really kind of be inward looking and build product. And I think a lot of good companies did that. And then on the other side of it, we kept growing. And then on the other side of it, prepare the business so that when things return back to normal, you're in a really strong position for growth and you can tell a compelling story to investors, but also you can capture a captive market at a time where everyone kind of goes back to normal. So that was like the story through that kind of 2020, 2021 phase. And then we've just been maturing the business. So we have, I think, a team of about 95 now. We've gone from 2 co-founders doing everything to a senior leadership team, leaders in parts of the business. And one of the most enjoyable things about building a business is watching people come in, grow, and it's theirs, and they care about it so passionately. And that's been, in the last year or so, a year and a half, a big part of our growth story. And we're now at a point where we have a much more mature company with institutional backers, and we've got, a huge opportunity in front of us, but it's okay, how do you take what was initially a scrappy team just scrambling and learning to a scrappy startup to a scale up, a bit more of a mature business, and then how do you think about capturing opportunities at a scale where you can actually do a lot? We have teams who can be deployed into problem spaces as opposed to an individual tinkering here and there. So that's kind of where we're at now. And that kind of just where we're at today, looking ahead, given the kind of audience, and it's a bit of a mixed bag, some people for some students, some alumni, a lot of people here for the gin, including myself. So I thought it would be important, not important, but potentially useful to kind of end on what are the things I'm working on and thinking about and seeing every day. And the technology community in Australia is actually quite small and everyone talks to each other. And what are all the technology founders thinking about? And what are the stresses and what are the opportunities? And I thought I'd just end on that. And again, questions, happy to answer whatever there is. I told you finance. So this is a chart of the 2-year US dollar interest rate. I asked a friend of mine from that first job to give this to me today. And so what it shows, and I think everyone kind of hears about this on the news, but I thought I'd just kind of, this is the macroeconomic climate is having a huge impact on all businesses, including businesses like mine. And I thought I'd just kind of comment on that a little bit before I wrap up. What's happened over that period, so you can see interest rates have been really low historically. Capital's been really cheap. So people like me with an idea, we're like, we have this product, it grows really fast. Do you want to invest in us? The ability for people to be like, yeah, I'll give you money, that has been at like, the opportunity to get funded has been at all times high. Because you can imagine if you've got your money sitting there and interest rates are low, you want to deploy that into high growth opportunities. And because $1 today is not worth that much less than $1 tomorrow, people are like, I want to deploy my money into your business, and I don't mind if you're not profitable yet, I actually just want to see you grow. And that you see that with like Uber, we've all enjoyed like ridiculously cheap food given to us. You see that with, I don't know if Milk Run is here, it's a company, that's like a high growth company where this company's grown extraordinarily fast. You see a lot of high growth companies, and they're just getting ridiculous sums of money to grow because the growth versus profitability trade-off has been skewed because of this low interest rate environment. So as interest rates go up, you start to see that impacting and cascading through a lot of businesses, because if you need money, if you're a company that needs money this year, it's going to be very hard to get it, and then so that puts pressure on you to run a better business. And so like, what does that, again, this is an Alice slide. What does that mean? So money's basically been free. Like the ability for you to raise money has been really easy, particularly for businesses of the scale that I'm at. That's no longer the case. So that growth versus profitability trade-off is skewing way towards profitability than growth. I just read an article about Xero announcing 16% headcount reduction. Atlassian did it. You've seen the big tech companies do it. I think that theme will continue, and this business is going to hurt quite a lot. The businesses that all businesses are kind of skewing towards profitability. I think I just mentioned Uber. I was talking to my sister about the app. They're starting to put offers in for affiliate deals. And I think that's a really microcosm example of this macro thing that's taking place. There are companies like, we need to monetize more because we need to skew towards monetization. So their product teams are actually putting offers in your app. And I think that theme is going to happen from top to bottom. The positives are, it's the best time to start a business. You've got good people being laid off. You've got shocks to an economy. Like when there are macro shocks, it shocks the way businesses operate, which shocks it'll shock the way consumers spend. It'll also shock it'll mean that the way things have been done, if they're in a suboptimal state, that'll likely change and it'll create an emergence of opportunities. And you will be able to, like early stage idea companies aren't going to be impacted as much as bigger companies. So you'll be able to get money and you'll be able to find people a lot easier than you would have a year ago. So I think it's the best time to start a business, like at this point in the cycle. And just two for me, which I mean, can open to questions. I think marketing and the people space are two spaces that I find really interesting. I think I'm looking at marketing now and seeing the same thematics that I saw in finance before I started. And I think the next kind of multi-billion-dollar business in Australia will be a marketing business that captures these trends. And on the people side, I think it's kind of like, I think any business is just the net sum of the people. And so I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of talk about remote work and hybrid work and the ways of working. I think that these are often not couched in what's happening economically. Like 2021, it was a talent war because borders were closed and everyone was having money fights because it was just so easy to get money. So you saw like people fighting for talent. You saw salaries go through the roof. You saw people hiring teams of 30 people because I don't know, I just need to get them. They have all these employee benefits and perks, and no one wanted to piss anyone off by saying, encroaching on how they work. All that is swinging to the employer, back to the employer, and you'll see that people are going to get let go because people need to run a tighter ship. And so I think you'll see leadership get tested. I think where you've got poor leadership, where people have joined in the good times and they're not prepared for the bad times, I think you'll see those companies really suffer. I also think you'll see CEOs and leaders tested when they have to let go of people, the way they do it and the way they actually, the retention that happens afterward and the humanity in which they do that, like lay people off in the first place will really test it. And you see tremendously poor examples of that from very big companies. I think the culture of businesses is going to be like critical. I think if you've got people who've joined for the right reason, building with a shared sense of purpose and a shared sense of alignment with management, and like a vision and a mission that is not some sort of bumper sticker slapped on to make people just make a bit of quick money. I think those businesses will thrive, and I think the businesses where you've got this quick cash grab with VC money will really struggle, and that's kind of an interesting one to watch. But that's my end slide. So thank you for listening. I can happy to take questions on anything.